Hi everyone, Allison here from CampSite Support. Welcome to our medical webinar. I'm still expecting a few more attendees, so I'm going to wait maybe another minute or two before I get started. All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. First, I want to make sure that my audio is coming through okay. So if you can hear me right now, if you could please go to the webinar control panel and find the questions section. If you can hear me, could you please type yes in that questions box? Okay, just testing again. Is anybody able to hear me? Okay, I got a yes. Okay. All right, so also with this questions box, if you locate that, if you have any questions during the webinar as I'm going through it, please type them into that questions box. I will take breaks every so often to answer the questions that have been written up here. If I can't get to all of your questions, I will follow up with you individually after the webinar. Also know that we record all of our webinars and we post them to the FAQ page afterwards. So if you need to leave this webinar early or want to refer back to it later, you can access that video, which we'll be posting in our FAQ section shortly. Okay, so here on my screen, I'm going to start the medical webinar today. In this training, we're going to look at the major functionalities of the medical module. To start, I'm going to go over the health history forms within this module, which you'll present on the parent dashboard to collect health information about each camper. So here I am on my training camp's parent dashboard. From the dashboard, parents can access your health forms directly by going to the forms page, by clicking the forms link on the left, and then selecting a camper to view their forms. So I'm going to look at Jill Paulson. Your medical forms will then be listed in a medical form section like you're seeing here. Note that you can also choose to present your health forms during the enrollment process so that parents are presented them while they're signing up for camp. I will show you how to enable that when we review the medical settings page later on. So by default, your health history form is a web form that's organized into 4 parts or 4 pages, like you see here. You can also create printed medical forms for parents to complete. So my camp currently has one printed health form called the Camper Healthcare Form, which you can see here. So to see what the health history form looks like for parents, we're going to start on the health history form, part 1. Okay, so quick note about the health history form. So by default, all of the questions you're about to see on the 4 pages that I'm going to go over, they come included with this form. And we've created these questions based on the health form put forth by the American Camp Association, and we've hard-coded them into CampSite so they're standard across every camp database. So these questions we've created are organized into different sections, starting here with the basic information, which collects campers' height and weight. The camper allergy section here collects the names and types of any allergens the camper may have and details on their reactions. Parents can add as many allergies as needed by using the Add Another Allergy button here. In this next section, we collect dietary information, the camper's diet type, and any notes on their dietary needs. Note that while these questions are hard-coded, you can fully customize the drop-down responses. So like for diet type, these are my current drop-down responses. Same for allergens for the type of allergen. All of these drop-downs that you see are fully customizable in your settings, which I will show you later on. Beneath the dietary information section, we have the restrictions section where you can collect information on any restricted activities for the camper. For example, maybe my camper Jill has asthma that's triggered by chlorine, so she needs to avoid swimming pools and any swimming activities. And then in this bottom section here, we collect the camper's health insurance information. So with the health history form questions being hard-coded into CampSite, note that individual questions that we ask can't be edited, rearranged, or removed from your own health history form. However, the entire question section can be removed if you don't want to present this particular question or section on your form. So for example, maybe you want to collect only camper height, but you don't want to ask weight. You can't disable just the weight question, but you could turn off basic information entirely. We do allow you to add your own custom questions in a specific section of the health history form, which you could use to then basically recreate one of our standard sections to your liking, like to turn this off and then only ask height as a custom question later on. So I'll demonstrate that more when we get to the last health form page here. So finally, at the very bottom of every health history form, you'll see here that the parent is required to provide their e-signature. So my example family right now has actually already filled out this form and signed it, so I will just click Submit Form here. After submitting, parents are directed to a confirmation page like you see here, letting them know that their form was submitted successfully. Here you'll see I have the option to download a copy of the page I just submitted to keep for my own records as a parent. There is a setting on the admin side where you can disable this download option if desired. But now I'm going to click the Return to Forms button to return to the rest of Jill's forms. Okay, so moving along here to Health History Form Part 2. Here you'll collect immunizations data by having parents provide the month and year of each immunization dose the campers received. So you'll see that each of these is a drop-down menu for each dose with the month and the year that parents will select. Below this immunizations table, you'll collect chickenpox information and also TB test information. Once parents provide any immunization information, It gets rolled over year to year, so they don't have to keep filling out this part of the health history form every camp season, unless they can still go in and choose to update something if they want to. This is the only section of a health history form that will have last year's data kept in it. All other medical information must be re-entered on a yearly basis. Also note that you can use the printed medical forms feature to let parents also scan and upload immunizations from their doctor as an alternative to manually entering them here, which again, I will demonstrate later for you. So after completing this form, I would sign it and then hit submit. Again, that confirmation page, I'm going to return to forms. All right, moving along here to health history form part 3. So here is where you'll collect the camper's medications. We ask for the name of the medication, the dosage, the reason for taking it, how to administer it to the camper, the start and end dates for when it should be administered, and any important notes about the medication. And then below here, we ask what time this medication should be delivered. By default, we provide you with an as-needed option here, but you can add as many other delivery times as you'd like in your medical settings. So in this case, I've added these for this particular option here. If a parent wants to add more medications, they can click add another medication here and add as many as they need. So in this case, Jill has provided 3 total medications. Beneath the medication section, there is a section where parents can select any forbidden over-the-counter medications. So you'll create your own list of over-the-counters to have parents select from here in your medical settings, which again, I will show you shortly. Okay, so again, signature required, and then submit the form. Finally, we have the health history form part 4. And on this page, we are first collecting emergency contact information. We collect up to 2 emergency contacts asking for their name, relationship to the camper, phone number, and alternative phone number. Next, you'll collect the camper's healthcare providers, specifically the name and phone number for their doctor, dentist, and orthodontist. Below this section here, you have the general health history. This section asks various yes or no questions about the camper's overall physical health. And then beneath that, you have mental health history section, which asks, again, a few yes or no questions about the camper's mental health. Lastly here, you'll see the custom medical questions section. So like I mentioned earlier, you can create as many of your own custom medical questions as you'd like. They would all then display in this section here. Also, for example, again, if there's any question sections where you want to ask maybe some but not all of the questions that we provide, like maybe in the mental health section, for example, you don't want to ask a particular question, but you like some of them, you can disable this entire section and then recreate the questions you do like as custom questions that would show up down here. And then finally, at the very end of the health history form, you'll see here the permission to treat section. Here, the parent signs and agrees that all of the health information they provided so far is accurate and that they authorize you to provide health care to their camper as needed. So this text was taken, again, directly from the American Camp Association. The individual text or verbiage itself can't be customized, but again, you could remove our permission to treat section, recreate it on your own as a custom medical question if you wanted to add to this or tweak it to your liking. So on this page, parents will individually sign the permission to treat as well as the overall page and hit submit. I need to answer my questions here because I set them to mandatory. Okay. So now returning back to that forms page, we've gone through parts 1 through 4 of the health history form. And then below the health history form, if you have any printed forms, they will display beneath here. You can create as many printed medical forms as you'd like. For my camper, I have just this one camper healthcare form to fill out. So if I click on this form, I am redirected to the form page here. So for this particular form, my camp uploaded a document for parents to download and then re-upload back to them. However, you can also use printed forms to create forms that are maybe upload only on the parent side or download only, which I will get into in more detail when we go over your settings in a bit. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the forms. Are there any questions so far? If there are, feel free to type them in. Okay, I will move on, but if questions come in, I will pause again later and get to those. So next we're going to switch over to the admin side to review how to configure the health history form settings. Okay, so here I am on the admin side of my training camp. To locate your medical admin settings, you will go to the admin page and then click the medical option in the side tab here underneath the campers tab. So the first question here, do you want to make the health history form available to parents? So this is a global setting that activates your health history form on the parent dashboard. So you can use this setting to also deactivate your health history form, maybe while you're in the process of setting it up or making changes to it, to take it off of the parent dashboard for parents to view. Next, set a due date for parts 1 through 4 of the health history form. This is optional and it only serves as a guideline to parents. They are not prevented from filling out the health history form after your due date has passed, but that due date will show up next to each form, guiding parents to submit it by that date. Next here, so for your admin users who don't have permission to view a camper's medical tab, do you want to allow them to have access to just the emergency contact information that parents have provided? If yes, this info will show up in place of where the camper's entire medical file would display on their profile, which we're going to see shortly. Next here, do you want to allow parents to download a PDF of each part of the health history form after they submit it? So if you remember, after I submitted each page of the health history form, I got that download button. If you wanted to remove that from your health history form, you could switch this to no here. And then lastly here, when you collect medications from parents, do you want to ask parents for the name and strength of a medication or just the medication name without the strength? This is commonly used by more medical-based camps. And then lastly here, we have the camper health history form configuration section. So here is where you can customize parts 1 through 4 of your health history web form. So again, by default, the camper health history form is organized into these 4 pages like we just saw. Each part contains different sections that ask those pre-written medical questions that we saw as well. You can customize this form by showing or hiding certain sections, rearranging the sections in pages, and even changing the name of each page. So to start, to see which sections of questions are being presented on which part of the form, if you click the name of the part, you'll see the individual question sections therein. And this maps to exactly to what we just walked through on the parent side. So if you remember part 1, we started out with basic info and so on. If this form hasn't been filled out by anyone yet, you can click, there'll be a rearrange icon here. You can click and drag to rearrange the sections. on this page. Maybe if I want them in a different order, I can move them around. My training camp has a bunch of fake submissions. For my health history forms, I can't move mine. That's why this little lock icon is showing here that I am unable to sort because someone has completed this page. For each individual question section, if you double click the pencil icon, you can set this particular section as active or not. So this is where you would come if you wanted to remove a certain section from your health form because maybe you don't like some of the questions that we've prescribed. You can turn it off by setting the active setting to no and saving. You can also, for each individual set of questions, add your own custom text or instructions above where the questions are listed on the form. You can also, if you see here, there's an add new page function. So if you click add, an additional 5th page will be added here. So if you wanted to maybe separate your form into more than just 4 pages, you can add another page here. Once you've added that page, if you click on it, it's prompting you to drag a question section from another page to here. So you could use this, maybe move certain sections down to this additional page that you've created. If you double click the pencil icon for an overall page, you can change the name of the form. So these are the default names that we provide. You could rename them as needed. You can also specify whether or not you want this particular page to display during enrollment. If you mark this as yes, you can also decide if you want to make it required to enroll. And then lastly, you can add custom text for parents at the very top of this entire page, like if you have any special instructions or additional information that you want to provide. And lastly, if you wanted to rearrange these pages, you can drag and drop here, change the entire order of each individual page. And then when you're done, click Save Changes here to save the settings for your form. Do we have any questions so far? Feel free to type them in. Okay, I'll keep moving on here. Next thing I want to go over is how to view a camper's medical file on their profile. So I am going to demonstrate with camper Jill Paulson. This is the camper that we just saw on the parent side, the parent form that was filled out for Jill. Okay, so on the camper profile, you'll see there is a medical tab here. So I'm going to click the medical tab for Jill. All of the information that Jill's parents have provided on her health history form is going to be organized here in the medical tab into these different sub-tabs here. At the top within the medical tab, you'll see you can select which year's medical information you want to review. Next, you'll see this lock icon here. So after your medical professional reviews the camper's medical profile, they can double click here to lock the form. And that will remove the camper's health forms from the parent dashboard to prevent parents from making any changes to this information that they provided. If I double click, I can unlock it. Maybe I want to let a parent in to make a few changes. I can unlock it on their end. Next here, you'll see critical medications. So admins can mark certain medical information on file for a camper as critical during their review. Anything that's been marked as critical, well, you'll have a notification here to let you know. If you click on this, it'll open up and tell you what that critical information is. So in Jill's case, her EpiPen was marked as critical and also her allergy to bee stings. And then below here, you'll see these sub-tabs with medical information. So down here, starting on the Forms tab, you'll have a list of every one of your health history forms, their due date, and if or when they were received. Digital forms, as you'll see, will also show you which parent submitted them. If you have any printed forms, they will then display below here. If you click on a printed form, if the parent has submitted it, it will show you here a copy of the form. If you need to manually upload a copy of this form for the parent, maybe the parent stopped off at your office in person and handed you this form, you could scan it in and manually upload it using this upload prompt here. Okay, going back to Jill Paulson. Below here on the left, you'll see reviewed by and reviewed date. After your medical professional reviews this camper's file, they should double click here to sign their name. After signing, today's date will automatically populate here in the reviewed date section. Over here on the right, you'll see the permission to treat section. Once parents sign that permission to treat section that we saw on your health history form, the signature of the parent and the date will show here. So you can come here and quickly refer to this section to confirm that parents have given you permission to treat this camper. And then lastly, you'll see a link here for print medical profile. If you click on this, it'll generate a PDF of all of the medical data provided on the camper's health history form and prompt you to print that out. Okay, so just going over some of the other tabs here. So the emergency contact questions from the health history form are loaded here into the emergency contacts tab. You have the general info tab where basic information, the diet information and restrictions are held. This little flag icon that you're seeing here, this signifies that this information can be marked as critical. And to mark that as critical, your admin would just come here, double click that flag. And now if we look at Jill's critical medication, we'll see there's another line here now that her diet information, she is gluten-free, has been marked as critical. You also have the doctor information, insurance information, medications, allergies, etc., all organized into these tabs here. Also notice that this information, if you wanted to edit it manually on your end, it is double click to edit, like we've seen with the camper and family profiles. Lastly, to go over here, there is a logs tab that you'll see. So this tab contains a log of all of the health center visits that this particular camper has in the system for them. Your health center logs are created on the medical dashboard, which we are going to go next and go over the medical dashboard for your camp. Okay, so to get to your medical dashboard, you would go up to the navigation bar here and click this medical link. All right, so here we are at the medical dashboard. There's a few different sections here. I'm going to start by going over the medical management section. So first here you have medication delivery statuses. So these are used by your medical professional to mark the delivery status for a camper's medication that needs to be administered. We provide delivered and missed as an option, but medication delivery might not be this cut and dry, so you can add more statuses of your own by clicking this link here. For example, you might want to add something like held to convey that medication was not given, but it wasn't exactly missed either. And then just add as many additional medication delivery statuses as you need. Going back to the medical dashboard, you have the medication deliveries here. So here is where you'll set up the times that you plan to deliver medications. So we provide as needed as an option, like I mentioned earlier, but you can add as many more delivery times as you'd like. These are common: breakfast, lunch, snack, dinner, bedtime, for example. When you go to add a new medication delivery, provide the name for it. We also ask you to specify exactly what time to designate for this delivery. And then the medication delivery options that you have here. So these will present as options like we saw for the parents to select when they are providing information on the medications for their camper. And then your medical admin will log the medications that they've delivered in CampSite using a delivery log tool, which I'll show you shortly. And then they will base their deliveries off of these time frames. So we'll see that in a little bit here. All right, going back to the medical dashboard, we have next your medical drop-down list. So I mentioned when we were looking at your the health history form from the parent side, there are various drop-down lists on the form to collect information on the allergy types, diet types, and forbidden over-the-counters. So here is where you would come and customize those values that parents can select. If you want to add additional values, type the value here and add. You can rearrange the order that the values display in, delete individual values as well. So by default, we give you some of these here, but you can add as many as you like or delete the ones that we provide. Okay, going back to the medical dashboard, we have your medical log items here. So when campers visit the health center, your medical admin can log their visit in CampSite. I will show you how logs are created next, but here under this medical log items page, you will manage the options that your medical admin can select when they're creating a new medical log for a camper. So there's a few different questions we ask on that medical log screen. We ask for their assessment, the camper's complaint, the disposition, or where the camper was discharged to, the staff attending the camper, and also treatment options. And then these will show up as different buttons that your medical admin can select on that medical log form. So you can control which options show up by coming here, clicking that section, and manipulating the values or medical log items here. If you need to delete a particular value, use this delete button. Add additional ones here. We will automatically alphabetize the values here. So you'll see they will display in alphabetical order on the medical log screen, which I'll show you shortly. If you want to remove a certain value, you can delete it if it has not been used yet on a single medical log. If it's been used on a medical log for a camper, you won't be able to delete it, but what you can do is disable it and hide it from future medical log screen by double-clicking and changing the active status to no. And you can toggle it back on as needed. So in a few minutes, I'll show you medical logging to give a little bit more context to this, but just remember that you would manage those medical log items on this screen here. Okay, going back to the medical dashboard, you have your camper printed medical forms here. Okay, so here is where you'll manage all of your printed medical forms, meaning any forms that you want to collect. To create a new printed medical form, you'll click this Add New Camper form here. This screen will then open up. So creating printed medical forms uses most of the same functionality as creating printed camper forms, if you're familiar with that tool. If you have a specific physical form that you want parents to download from you and then re-upload back to you, you would provide that form by creating a form for it here and then uploading that document using this upload prompt here. And then on the parent side, when they access the form, they'll be prompted to download it like we saw with mine and then re-upload it back to you. Keep in mind, like with the printed camper forms, the upload tool that parents see, it only accepts one file total. So if you give parents a multi-page form to scan back in, and the parent has scanned each page as a separate file, you'll need to create a separate printed form here to accept each individual page. If you don't upload a form here, when parents access this form, they'll only see an upload prompt. So you can use this feature to create upload-only forms, like to ask parents maybe to provide a copy of their own physical documents from the doctor, like scanning in their insurance card or scanning in a copy of their immunizations, if you wanted to give them that option instead of typing them up on that health history web form like we saw. So for each form that you create, you can also include a due date here for it. Again, just a guideline, doesn't prevent parents from submitting it after the due date has passed. You can set the form as active or not. Specify if you want a notification for this form, if you have the overall form submission notifications turned on, and whether or not to display it during enrollment. Again, if you display it during enrollment, you can also make it required to enroll. And then once you start receiving submissions for a form, like with the Camper Forms tool that we have, you can double click this icon here to download a copy of all of your submissions. Okay, going back to the medical dashboard. If you have the staff module, note that you can also manage staff printed medical forms. Functionality looks the same as the Camper printed forms I just went over, so I'll move on for now. Next here we have custom medical questions. So again, there's a section for custom medical questions for campers versus staff. So I'm going to click in and demonstrate with campers. Okay, so here is where, like I mentioned earlier, you would write up any custom medical questions you want to present to your campers or your staff on the staff page. So here are the custom questions that I currently have. To add a new custom medical question, you can click this link here. You're going to be presented with that same sort of standard question screen that we have in CampSite. You would type your question in, designate the response type, designate whether it's mandatory to respond or not, and then here you can mark whether or not admins can mark this particular question as critical to be included in that critical medical information section. Lastly, you can toggle the active status off and on for this question if you wanted to remove it from the parent view. So just as an example here to show you, if you wanted to create, sort of recreate a certain section of your own within your custom medical questions, there is that header type for questions. So I created a sunscreen header to sort of section off some sunscreen questions that I have, then created the following questions underneath. So you could use that if you wanted to create your own sort of sections on the health history form, or even if you're trying to recreate one of our question sections to only include those questions that you want to ask on the form. Okay, so I'm going to go back here to the medical dashboard. Any questions before I move on to the next section here? Okay, so I'm going to keep moving on. Next, I'm going to go over the health center visit logs in this section here. So here's where you'll create, edit, and report on all of your health center visit logs. So to log a new visit to the health center, your medical admin will click Begin New Log Entry. First, you'll notice that this page is optimized for mobile devices, so admins can easily create a new medical log using an iPad or on their phone, wherever they need to be at camp. So you'll start by searching for the camper that you want to create the log for. So I'm going to create a log for Jill. I search for Jill. I'm going to select Jill here. And once I click on Jill's name, it loads her photo, some of her bio information, including her sessions and bunks. There's a link here. I can hop straight to Jill's entire medical profile if I needed to. Otherwise, we just populate the critical medical information here. And then below here is where you would begin logging the health center visit. So for this first section here, the camper's complaints, select any of these items, and you can also write up additional notes. So if you remember when I was showing you the medical log items section earlier, this is where those medical log items will display. So each of these button options you're seeing here, you can customize on that medical log item section under medical management. So let's say that Jill came in complaining of a rash, and I want to note that it's on both arms. Next, I'm asked if she has a history of any present illness. I can type notes here, make notes on the physical exam that was conducted, and then select my assessment. So we'll say, let's say I believe that Jill has poison ivy. So I'm going to mark that here. I can also take any notes if needed. Next, I'll move on to the treatment section. Let's say that I gave her some Benadryl and some reassurance. I can also add additional notes on treatment as well. Here in the disposition section, I'll mark essentially where I discharged her afterwards. So let's say I released Jill to her counselor. Now, again, I can add notes as needed. And then in this last section here, you'll select which staff member was the one who attended to Jill. So let's say it was Greg who attended to Jill for this visit. And then at the very bottom of this page, you'll see three options. So I can select delete and start over here if I wanted to erase everything I just input above and start again from scratch. I can select save and continue later to save this log without closing it out. Like if I still want to check up on Jill tomorrow, maybe to see how her rash has progressed, I can select this option. So I can come back, add to this log, update it later when I see her again. Or I can click here on the right, finish and close log. So if I feel that this issue is completely resolved, I can finish and close it out. Closed logs cannot be edited or added to later on. So keep that in mind when you're deciding what to do here. So let's say that I don't need to follow up on Jill, so I'm going to finish and close the log. It's going to ask me to confirm. I'm going to click OK. After you either save or finish a log, you're going to be redirected to your Open Medical Logs page, which shows you all of the medical logs that you currently have open, so you can address them as soon as possible. So in this case, I have an open log for Paula. It lets me know the log number and when it was last updated. I can click on this if I want to continue it now, or I can go back to the medical dashboard. Okay, if I wanted to hop straight to my open logs page, I could click the link for it here, like we just saw. Next up, you have the recent log activity. I click on this here. Here you can see a list of all the health center visits over the last 3 days. So you'll use this slider here to adjust the time frame that you want to look at. So if you notice, my last hours of activity is changing as I slide this. So I can see as early as 3 hours ago up to 72 hours ago here. So I only have a single log that was created in the last 3 days, but more logs would show up here if there were created during these time frames that I'm selecting here. So for the logs that do display, you'll see the camper name, timestamp information for when the log was created, when it was closed, even when it was last updated, quick summary of the complaint, assessment, and treatment, or I could click to view the full log entry from this page. And that just pops open this little window here and tells me everything about that medical log. So this is that log that I just created, actually. Close this out, and I can go back to the medical dashboard. Okay, so finally in this section, we have the log archives. So here I can see a full record of all of my medical logs in the system, as opposed to just the last 3 days with the recent activity page that we were just on. So here I can enter a specific date range, or I can leave the range blank to look at all the logs that have ever been created. And then I can choose to look at either camper logs and or staff logs. I'm going to click Run Report here. So here are all of the medical logs that I currently have in my camp. I can, from this page, I could print this table or export it as a spreadsheet. Note that these two functions, so you are printing or exporting this exact table that you're seeing here. It's not printing or exporting a full copy of the log for each person, just the data that you're seeing in this table. If I did want to access a full log, like for Jill here, I could click on this little log icon. Again, pop open that full log for that camper. So use this to access all of the medical logs that have been created, even within a certain time frame if needed. Okay, going back to the medical dashboard. Next here on the right, we have the medication delivery section. So starting here, there is a medication delivery log tool. And again, we have one for campers, one for staff. I'll demonstrate with campers. So this is the tool that your medical admin will use to mark the delivery status for each scheduled medication for a camper. Again, you'll notice that this page is optimized for mobile, so medical admins can use it on an iPad or their phone, anywhere they need to be. First thing that you'll see here is a calendar. So with this calendar, you'll use this to choose a day to log medications for. By default, today's date will populate here, but you can hop to a different day if needed. Maybe I'm going on a field trip tomorrow. I'm going to have to take down medication deliveries by hand because I'm not going to have Wi-Fi or internet. So I want to pull a list of all of my deliveries the day before. So I can click November 8th. Next, select a session of campers to log medications for. So this is a drop down with all of your sessions listed in it. Note that the date that you selected here, it has to be an active camp day for the session that you select here in order to start delivering. Next, you can filter down your medication delivery list by a certain division or bunk in this session, or leave it to all to pull every camper in the session that has medications to be delivered. Next here in this drop-down, I am asked for which medication delivery time I want to pull. So again, this list here corresponds with your delivery times that you can customize in that medical management section. I'm going to say that I want specifically the breakfast deliveries because that's when I'll be out on the field trip. And then in this last drop down here, I can decide how to organize or arrange the list of campers that I'm about to generate, so alphabetically or by their division and bunk if I had specified that above. I'm going to leave it by alphabet and start delivering. So I have 3 campers in the Camp Firewood All-Star session that have scheduled medications at breakfast time on November 8th. If I click on a particular camper, so let's say with Angelo Joyce, he needs to be administered amoxicillin, 1 pill for an ear infection. He's administered it orally. I can also see the date range, so he's taking this medication from November 11th through November 9th. Any notes on the medication would display here, and then I would select the status here. So again, these correspond with your delivery statuses. By default, we provide missed or delivered, but again, you could add additional statuses here. So say I am coming in here, I'm ready to log, it's breakfast time, and I'm ready to log this medication for Angelo. I would click select status, and in this example, I'm going to say that Angelo missed his medication. So this is going to ask me for any notes on the status that I selected. It is optional, but let's say I just want to note, so the camper arrived late to camp today, and that's why he missed it. I'm going to click OK. And now Angelo's medication has been removed from the list of those that I need to log. And I'm left here, still need to log Trent and Chad. Okay, but I'm going to go back to the medical dashboard. If you hit back once, you can then switch. If you need to log for another session, you can switch the session, start delivering, mark those medications as delivered. I'm going to hop straight back to the medical dashboard to continue here. And then finally in this section, so the medication delivery log tool, same for staff, same functionality, just with staff instead of campers. This final item here, the medication delivery report, if we click on that, on this page, you can generate a list of all of your medication delivery statuses. So first, you can filter by year, by campers or staff. You can select specific sessions or leave them all selected and look at a particular date range. So again, we auto-populate today's date, but you could change this to a different day if you want. So I'm going to leave this to today's date. Next, I will select a medication delivery time. So you'll need to choose at least one medication delivery time. I will, just to show you, I'm going to select all. And then you also need to select at least one medication delivery status. This scheduled status here, so this denotes any medication that hasn't yet been marked using that delivery tool we just saw as delivered, missed, or some other status that you've created. Now I'm going to click Run Report. Actually, let's switch. I can demonstrate what it looks like when a camper has missed a medication. We're going to do, so I was in there on November 8th previously, and I had marked Angelo as having missed his breakfast delivery of amoxicillin. So you can see that here. You can also see for Trent and Chad, if you remember, I skipped over them. I did not mark their medications as delivered, so their Allegra and multivitamins are showing as still scheduled at breakfast time. So again, you can use this to see for a certain day all of the medications that you have to administer or have already administered. You could use this tool, like I mentioned, if maybe you have a field trip coming up tomorrow or on another day, you know you won't have internet, you can generate this list so you know what medications need to be delivered, and then come back into CampSite later and load them into that scheduled delivery log tool that we saw previously. So say that you have a camper, say that Angelo, I did end up administering his amoxicillin. Say maybe he showed up like right after I had marked it as missed, so I gave it to him right afterwards. If I go directly to Angelo's profile, wait for that to load here, go to his medical tab, then over to his medications tab, you'll see a breakdown here of each of his medications. So we're looking at his amoxicillin here. On the calendar for this medication, it'll show me all of the dates he's supposed to take this medication, and you'll see that the November 8th day is marked red to signify that there is at least one missed delivery on that day. So if I click on this date, November 8th, I have the option here to change the status to another one of my delivery statuses. So in this case, if I had delivered it to him shortly after I marked it as missed originally, I can click delivered. I can also add additional notes. Maybe I will say delivered at 10 a.m. to let myself know, and then submit the changes. If I refresh his page, go back to the medical tab, back to his medications, you'll see that November 8th day is now turned green to show that there has no longer been any missed medications. So also note on that scheduled medication delivery log tool that we were just looking at, the as needed status for medications. So you can't log any as-needed medications using that tool. That's only for scheduled administrations. So any as-needed medications that you did administer to a camper, you would need to come to the camper's profile and log that manually by clicking on a date and using this function here. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the medical dashboard. Any questions so far before I continue? Okay, so moving on. Last section we have here is the medical reports section. So in this section, you can export medical information in mass. So the first item here, you have the medical profiles tool. This tool lets you print out the information from the camper health history forms that you've collected from parents in mass onto a PDF. So here in this section here for the report options, you'll specify which sections of information you want to print for each camper. So you can toggle each individual section off as needed. You'll also see that for medications and forbidden over-the-counters, the drop-down menu allows you to only pull their critical information. You can switch this to all of their medications or forbidden OTCs, or you can turn this section off completely like you can with the others. For the allergy section, you can also look at critical only, all of them, or none, or you also have the option for food only allergies. So maybe, for example, I need to generate a list of every just the camper's food allergies for my cafeteria staff. I could come here to generate medical profiles, turn off everything except the food only allergies, and print this list to just pull the food allergies for every camper. So I'm going to just leave this as is. After you've specified this section here, you would go down to who to include and tell CampSite whether you want to generate this info for campers and or staff, whether I want to look at information by year or by session. When I select year, it's going to ask me which year. If you select session, it asks you which session. And then in the order, I can choose whether to organize alphabetically, by division, or by bunk. So if you do want to pull information for just a particular session, you can organize your results according to the division or the bunk that the camper is in. To show you what this looks like, I will click print. This screen will load here a PDF or a sort of printable version of all of the information that I just specified on the previous page. Your print dialog box will open automatically, allowing you to just click print here. If I click cancel, I can just see what this information looks like. So note that if, based on the sections that you specified on the previous screen that you want to pull in this printout that you're generating, if a parent didn't complete a specific section, like in this case, Kareem, his parent didn't fill out the digital immunization section, this section will still show up in your printout. It's just going to be blank. Okay, so going back to the medical dashboard, other report that you can generate here, there's a medical awareness list. So here you can specifically print out all of your critical medical information. So again, you can specify exactly which sections of information you want. You can also include the camper info summary. Technically, for a specific section, you could change critical only to all of that information or none. And then down here, you'll again specify who to include. So one difference with this report, we ask if you want to show all people, yes or no. So if you set this to no, the report that you generate, it'll only return persons that have results to display according to what you put up here. So like based on these current settings, if I put show all people to no, I'm only going to generate results for people that have critical only information for any of these sections. I'll leave this to you guys just to show you. When you go to print, this will generate, so everyone in the year 2019, all of the critical, medical, forbidden OTCs, et cetera, information. So if someone does not have that information, it's just going to say no information found for each line. So if you put show all people to no, only people with that information will come up in your results. Okay, and then going back here to the last medical report, we have the medication delivery list. Here you can print out a list of the medications you need to deliver for a specific day. So again, you can use this tool to generate a print-friendly version of the medications you need to deliver. Like I mentioned, if maybe you're going on a field trip, you're not going to have internet, you want to get that list ahead of time to plan for that day. On this report, you can include the camper info. You can also put a page break between each camper if you're going to be printing it out and you want to easily separate each camper. You can choose which delivery times that you want to generate. So maybe I'm going to be on that field trip during breakfast and lunch, so I want those deliveries printed out. And then select my date here. So let's say that my field trip is tomorrow. Who to include again, that same camper staff, by year of session, and how to organize my results. So just to demonstrate here, again, my printout is going to show I included page breaks, so you'll see each individual page I have to print. Camper is separated onto their own page. So we're seeing here those 3 campers that I have for November 8th. I can take down on paper that I deliver their medications while I'm out on that field trip. And then when I come back to camp after my field trip, I can go back to that scheduled medication delivery log tool and manually log all of those medications that I had administered and logged by hand. Okay, so this concludes our medical module training session. So thank you for taking the time to participate. We'll have a recording of this webinar posted to the FAQ section within a few days. So if you'd like to refer back to that, check that FAQ page a few days from now. I will stick around for a few minutes if you have any questions. Otherwise, again, thank you for taking the time to participate.